Good afternoon. I hope everyone is doing well, enjoying their week. I know that next week that I will not be here, so please feel free to watch this video as many times as you need to in order to prepare for the upcoming paper you guys will be writing, and also your quizzes and homework. So this week we're talking about arguments. We are looking in your textbook at chapter 4. It's the same chapter, edition 4, or the 5th edition. So, but it's still chapter 4. So please make sure that you read your textbook and that you utilize it for the resource that it is. And there's a lot of great information that is in here. So arguments. We discussed in class. Arguments, they don't have to be heated. The definition of an argument is two opposing sides to a specific issue. There's two different viewpoints. And you'll notice there's some resemblance here to a synthesis, where a synthesis, it was one topic and we just chose three because obviously you can have more opinions of how people view a specific topic. In an argument, people feel justified that this is why I think the way that I do. And the part of this exercise is, yes, not everyone's going to agree, and that's okay. That's okay, because there's a lot of things that make up why we believe what we believe. And, like I strongly encouraged, that's a self-discovery that each of you guys have to do. What is it that you believe? What do you stand for? What do you deem acceptable, unacceptable? What do you feel needs to occur? Those are personal ideology. We talked about your personal belief system. Yes, that is a part of what creates your personal ideology. And you are doing yourself a disservice if you do not take into account if you are a religious person or not. Everyone has a moral code. Do you know what that is? Have you defined that for yourself? So in an argument, people are justified. What we have the problem with in today's dynamic is that this cancel culture. If you do not agree with me, then you're evil, you're a horrible person, blah, blah, blah. And that's really, it's not fair, and it really does not look well on people who do that. Because, my story is going to be different than your story. I'm older than all you guys. So, I have a different life experience that would speak into why I think the way that I do, because I've experienced different things. I've been around longer to have opportunities to experience different things. And so it takes courage. It takes a brave person to say, so what is it that you do believe? And then shut up and listen to them. It's okay. Because the only way that we're going to continue the academic conversation to get into discourse, calm discourse, is by listening to one another so we can actually find common ground so we can continue to move forward. When two people dig in their heels, refuse to listen to the other side, all you're going to get is a big wall of dirt because everybody keeps digging their own hole. And you're going to get farther and farther apart and more divisive. And for people who promote divisiveness by saying, if you don't agree with us, then you're whatever, then that's on them. And we need to recognize that for what that is. And so as you're in college and you're being exposed to different things, this is really creating and asking those questions. And it is okay to ask questions. This is the time to do it. But also, let me give you a hint. You're going to continue to ask questions even into adulthood. It's just a matter of, are you willing to listen to the answers even when they may not be comfortable? You may not like the answer, but unfortunately, like I tell my kids, you may not like the answer, but it doesn't mean that it's not right. But we need to take that into consideration. So the exercise with the argument is this opportunity to look at hot button issues of the day, things that are going on in our world. And we do need to pay attention. And some of them, we're the conflict in Israel, the Ukraine. There's a lot of things, and it's uncomfortable to watch. And also because we are pretty removed from it, we don't get the full emotion of really what's going on. We may not even have all the facts. And so these people that are protesting, sometimes I'd have to wonder, do you even know what you're really protesting about? Do you have all the facts? Or are you listening to rhetoric of someone else's opinion, and because of how they're communicating it, it sounds believable? Or, you hear it on the news, and pretty much everyone I've ever talked to, no one completely believes the news, but it's really interesting how easily we're swayed by what we hear on the news, and we accept it as complete fact when we know, and we've said that that there's a lot of inconsistencies with that. So again, this is an opportunity to look into some of those topics and to really step back and say, okay, these are the two sides of these topics. And based on the facts that have been researched, now that's the analysis component, which side has the strongest argument? And sometimes that tiebreaker on who has the strongest argument, because you are the author of this paper, and it is your opinion who has the strongest argument, you're going to have to explain in your conclusion or your outcome as to why this has the strongest argument, would be your personal ideology. And based on, if you are aligning with Christianity, based on those principles. If you're Islam, based on those principles. If if you are agnostic, you really don't believe, you're neither here nor there. If you are atheist, which you totally believe, there's no God, you still have a moral compass of what you live by, and based on personal experience. It could be personal experience. It could be that, do you have relations, or, are you Ukrainian? Are you Jewish? So based on those, if you're Jewish, you have the Talmud to go to. So what is it that you believe? And that's usually that final, like, okay, this is the reason that this side of the argument is strongest. And to negate your personal ideology is doing you a disservice. So obviously that needs to go in there. And sometimes, you're 17, 18 years old. Have you really thought about it? And this would be a great opportunity for you just to kind of think about, really, what is it that I think about? And it's okay. You're an adult. For so long, when you're growing up, we have a tendency as children to take on what our parents believe, politically, about a myriad of things. And so, not that you should say, oh no, well, that's just them, and I'm going to go complete opposite. That's not even fair either. But just to say, okay, this is what you believe, that's great. And then either through your research, you'll find out, yeah, that is what I believe. Or you're like, I'm not so sure. And guess what? That's okay. That's okay. All right. So in chapter 4, as we're going through the argument, the first thing is deciding your topic. I gave you the link. There are so many topics in there. I'm really going to stress. Please make sure that you are choosing a topic that you want to know about, that you're interested in. Please do not make this arduous. There are so many topics that are out there. Choose something that has two distinct sides, that you are able to differentiate those two sides. Do you have to get a topic off of there? No, not necessarily. But again, if you're choosing something that's not on that list, again, the word of caution is you have to have two distinct sides on that particular topic. And so just make sure that you do that. Once you have done that, then you have to do a little research. So for one, what's the issue? That's going to be one source, to be quite frank with you. And it's just an overview. Remember that you only have a paragraph to give an overview of why this is, the issue that it is. Okay. And kind of going back with that topic, you can choose a topic, maybe it could be that you're wanting to learn more about it, and you really, you see everybody's got, is upset about it, but you don't really know about it. This is a great opportunity for you to delve into that. It could be a topic, honestly, that you do have a strong feelings about, and it takes courage to step back and to consider the other side. And because this paper and this academic paper is another exercise in objectivity, you have to be careful with bias, and making sure that you are stepping out, you're taking your emotions out of it, and you are allowing the research to drive it. until you get to your outcome. And then when you really are looking at it objectively, when you're looking at both sides, you're taking your personal ideology into consideration. That's your final outcome. And again, to me, I think that is a sign of courage to say, okay, yes, I have strong feelings about this. Maybe you have been in that stance where this is the way I believe, and you're an idiot because you believe that way. Well, obviously, people believe certain things for a certain reason. So to me, it begs to be looked into. Why are we all not on the same page? And can I take my emotions out of it and be able to consider the other side? A couple things will happen with this paper. Either it will confirm what you think, or it could be like, oh, maybe I should have considered that. I hadn't before. And maybe it could be that you had that initial stance, but you didn't. Maybe it was it really because you believe that was a part of your personal ideology, or seeing that you're on that discovery of what is it that you actually believe, could that change how you feel about that outcome? The other piece of that is what has the strongest argument? What has the most concrete information or research in order to give that outcome? So I've had kids actually flip on what they thought. For those of you who are choosing a topic that you don't really know a whole lot about, this will be a great opportunity to say, oh, okay, this is how I feel about that, now that I've taken both of those sides into consideration. And that's really cool. That's like adulting 101. Woohoo! So, we're going to be doing this. You're always going to do this throughout your whole life. You have to know what you think and how you feel about certain things. And in high school, you wrote a compare and contrast. You're going to see those elements within this as well. Remember, not all genres of writing, academic writing is not all the same. There's different genres, but you'll see different pieces of those things that we've done as you are creating what you think about certain things. So on chapter 4, the claims. We've talked about claims and evidence. Remember that in your supporting paragraphs, they have to have a claim, and your claim is what is it that you're discussing, aka your topic sentence. Your evidence is your support. That's your research that deals with that particular claim. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, you are going to have an umbrella of your topic. Just like we did in class, our umbrella was abortion. And again, if you were not in class, that topic is off the table because I kind of went through it in class. And I am going to use that kind of as an example of this. So we identified what were the issues underneath of abortion that were the pieces or points of contention within that argument. The woman's right of choice. We talked about, there's also the issues of rape and incest. We talked about the issue of the man, and really what role does he play? Does he even get a say in the matter? The role of, if we ban abortions, then, women are going to still have them. They've been having them from the beginning of time, and it forces them to go to people who are not doctors, and it can hurt their health, blah, blah. The other piece, there's a lot of different points of contention that are underneath of this topic. And if you look up your topics and just start a Google search, what are the main issues under the argument of abortion? And they'll list those out. If you're doing immigration, what are the main points of immigration? We'll list the points out. Okay, now I gave you guys a gift in your module this week. I created it. So what I have done is, this is kind of like an organizational chart. Okay, so at the top of it, it says, what is your topic? Always make sure that your topic is there so you can actually see. In the center will be those main points of contention. So here I would have put abortion. Here I would have put the woman's right, the federal, is it right for the federal government to tell a woman what she can do and not do with her body? That is a huge argument in the abortion argument. And then, the right of men, the rape and incest, the, just the different ones that are available there. And I even have some on the back so you can continue that if you need to. If you want, you can print this off, and so you have it in there. Now, for each point that you have, there's a for and an against. So when you do your research, the for argument for that specific thing, what does it say? Do not forget to put your in-text citation here. Anytime that you're doing research, work smart, do it right the first time, because if you don't, then you're going to have to go back into your sources, and that's really burning precious time. Do it once. What's the information? Where's the source? Now, this is downloadable into a Word document, so if those spaces need to become bigger, then great. If you don't want to use it, that's great too. But, to me, I'm a visual person, and to be able to see, okay, I have addressed both sides of this specific issue. And then that way I know that I've addressed them. Again, do not forget your in-text citations. It's extremely important. Remember, in this paper, you will have 4 core sources. Remember, can you go over it? Absolutely. But you have to have 4 core. And you guys will be completing an annotated bibliography next week on those 4 core sources. I think we just need an additional practice on that. Please utilize the resources and the examples that I have given you in order to create that. Again, do not forget on that annotated bibliography, even though the bibliography, the annotation is in the actual document, I still want a reference page from you guys because I want to give you additional practice in setting that up. Please make sure that you're using that APA packet that I've placed in your resource module to help reformat that. I do not want to see additional spaces in between your bibliographies. Please make sure there's hanging indents. And above all, please make sure that all areas of that bibliography are filled in, okay, for each one of those sources. And I need a medium. Is it a web or print? Because here's the other kicker on the annotated bibliography. For each stance, so for the for or pro stance, you need at least 1 web, 1 print. Same thing on the against. 1 web, 1 print, because I want to make sure that you are able to differentiate between those sources and know what they are. And I need for the medium to be in that bibliography. Again, we're in a day of technology. A lot of these PDFs, they are scans of a print source. If the original source was in a print format, something tangible, what's my little go-to? Does it have a page number? If it has a page number, it was probably a print source. It was a print source. If it, remember, web documents, their page is on there. They don't have page numbers. They're not going to. So please make sure that you are doing that. Do not forget your mediums. Because even though they scanned it, they put it's online, it is a print source, but I still want that URL in your bibliography. So please, please, please make sure that you have all the pieces and parts for that annotated bibliography next week. Okay? All right, so kind of going back to our claims and evidence. Your claim will be whatever is in this, because that's what you're discussing. Okay? Now, for each one of those claims, you're going to have at least 2 paragraphs, because you're going to have a paragraph focused on the for stance and a paragraph focused on the against stance. You cannot have them in the same paragraph because you're focusing on 2 different things. Remember, every paragraph has a specific focus. Shift your focus where you're explaining something else. You have to begin a new paragraph. Okay? Super simple. Super simple. All right? So now, this is the other thing. All right, so my claim is going to be this subtopic here. My evidence, let's say if this is for my for, my evidence will come out of here, right? And so that's the second part of that paragraph. The third part of the paragraph is the explanation of it. And you have to qualify that. So when you are discussing if I was going to be pro-choice, with the federal government being able to tell a woman, that, because the basic part of it would be, not having the government to tell a woman what she can do or not do with her body. And then to qualify that, or to really expound on that, is, if the government is allowed to have a woman or tell a woman what she can do with her body, then where will that stop? It could be that right now they're saying, no, you cannot have an abortion. But if you're looking down the road, could it be that, what if you have someone that, in office, and they're looking for a certain criteria for who their citizen should be, and if your unborn child does not meet that criteria, then they could say to abort it. And there are countries that do that. In fact, I had a student, it was an exchange student in one of my classes a couple years ago, and his mother's friend was 8 months pregnant, and the government made her abort her baby. Yes, it happens in the 21st century. It's appalling, but, so there's some viable reasons. And so those are the conversations you need to have, and in order to find solutions, but you need to be made aware of those things. The other side of that, if your point is, if the stance is, when does life begin? Well, if I'm against abortion, one of my stances would be, we determine death when a heartbeat stops. Well, logic would dictate, shouldn't life begin when the heartbeat begins? And by the time a woman knows she's pregnant, they have a heartbeat. So, and so that would be part of, that qualifying of whatever that evidence is, because you would have to actually, look up, you would find that information as far as, that pro stance of when does life begin. And also, if you're taking into your personal ideology with that, with aligning with Christianity, according to Christianity, the baby is formed purposely in its mother's womb, and life begins at conception. If you do not align with a religious sect, that obviously is going to be a different answer. So you have your claim, you have your research. It has to be research to substantiate that claim, and then the outcome of what that looks like. So there's 3 pieces to each one of those supporting paragraphs. This is a 5-page paper, and some of these topics that they have listed are big topics. Like abortion's a huge topic. So what I would say is there's so many different subtopics. Yes, I have a lot of these spaces. You're not going to have all of this in here. But what I would say is the ones that have a lot of information, choose like the heavy hitters in order to put in your paper for both sides. And by having that visual of it written out, you'll see which one of these subtopics has enough meat to it in order to put in your paper. But again, I did do both sides. So, but you will not have that many. You will not. I would say, honestly, for a 5-page paper, as far as the subtopics, you'll probably have 4 tops, if you are developing them correctly. Because remember, the outcome is also extremely important. And I don't want just 2 sentences for a conclusion. That is not a conclusion. That is not an outcome. It needs to be developed as to why that you think that whichever side has the strongest. And it has to be based on the facts. And then, like I said, the tiebreaker of the facts of your personal ideology. And that's why that's your stance. Remember that this is high-level writing. There is no first or second person, so you are reporting on it. The personal I should not be in there at all. No we, our, you, your, us, any of that is allowed in this paper. No contractions. The only time that contractions or first or second person are acceptable is if it is in a direct quote. So I do want to address that real quick before I keep going on in this chapter. There really shouldn't be any direct quotes in here. There's really no need for them. So any information that you're getting must be paraphrased. Again, because that information, even when it's paraphrased, is coming out of a different source, you must have an in-text citation for it, because you didn't own it. You didn't create it. You found it somewhere. And you always have to give that author props, okay? Don't forget that in that APA packet, I do go through how to do in-text citations. I do not want to see a URL as an in-text citation. I do not want to see a URL on a reference page as your bibliography, because that's not a bibliography. It's a URL. So, folks, we are now week 8 and 9 going into this semester. I will not accept URLs on a reference page, just the URL. It has to be a part of a bibliography. And if I just see a URL, I will fail you. I'll give you a 0 because you did not have that. Okay? I need to see actual bibliographies. Remember, there's a lot of resources online. If that APA packet doesn't help, fine. Go to PurdueOwl.com. You know, type it up. How do I set up a bibliography in APA format? It will tell you each one of the pieces. And you can even say, how do I set up a print source for an APA bibliography? How do I set up a web source for an APA bibliography? Be specific. It will tell you. Okay? There is absolutely no excuses. Not with this day and age. Not with the technology that you have at your fingertips. I say that with love, by the way. All right. So, identifying claims. Now, a big part of this book is the identifying of claims, and that's also going to be your homework. So I do want you to read through that. There are 3 types of claims, excuse me, that you guys will be doing for your homework, and that will be present on your quiz. Claims of fact, claims of value, and claims of policy. There are a lot of different examples. There's actually an argument in here, and then when it starts going through the facts, it actually references it back to that reading source, so you have that example. Please make sure that you read all of this. It's not a long chapter. It really does not take long. Now, in a nutshell, on page 95, it says steps to identifying claims, and it gives you the questions to ask. Does the argument assert that the problem or condition has existed, exists, or will exist? Does the argument seek to establish that the definition is true and can serve as a standard for making relevant judgments? Does the argument ask you to accept the premises that one thing has caused another? That's a claim of fact. For a claim of value, you're asking the question, does the argument express an evaluation of a problem or condition that has existed, exists, or exists? For a claim of policy, does the argument call for change? And is it directed at some future action? Because think of that. That's why you have policies. And you create policies for those things that are coming up. So definitely go through that. I have already placed that quiz. It is in week 9 module. You can take it at any time. Just make sure that it's taken before Sunday evening of week 9 by 11:59. What I would also strongly encourage, and I have placed that in your instructions, that please make sure that you take that first. When you take the quiz, it will tell you which ones that you have wrong. It is not timed because it's more of homework. In fact, you will see that on page 95, that quiz is actually what's in here. But I typically would do this as a class. Obviously, I'm not there in order to do that. So you are able to do that. Use your book. It's homework. Take your time. If you do get it wrong, go back and decide, why was it wrong? What we would do in class is when we read each one of those statements, underline the piece of it that would support if it was policy, if it was value, or if it was fact. And that would help you because you have to justify that. Okay? Why is it that you would need to know those different types of claims? Why is that even important? One is so how you're answering it. And again, it's just like when we did logical fallacies. You need to know that so you know what your stance is. And so you are able to respond to it accordingly. I mean, if it's something that's a fact, can you see how that response would be different than something that's value? So be very careful with that. Again, So this week, on week 8, you have discussion boards, which are going to have, please follow those instructions because, again, they're very detailed. I want you identifying the topic. I want you to identify the main points of that argument, why you chose it, because you should know why you chose it. Please make sure that you have your 2 reply threads. I would please respond, and I've given you some indicators of how to respond to, or questions, how to respond to the initial threads. Remember that your initial thread must be no less than 300 words. This is standard. I should never even have to put that in the instructions anymore because it's always been the same standard. Initial threads are no less than 300 words, and reply threads must be no less than 100 words. I do this purposely so you're able to develop your ideas and really think about it. It's really easy and to just say, yes, I agree. No, oh, that's a great topic. That's not a response. That's kind of a loser kind of thing. So just be really careful, and I want you to develop those out. Now, because this was a short week, I am giving you till Sunday evening in order to complete your reply and initial threads. I'm not going to take any points off if it wasn't due on Wednesday evening, which I explained in class. No, so next week, I'm just going to use this one video for this week, and next week I'm not going to post another video because it's basically the same thing. I really want you into the arguments. I want you researching for fact. Utilize the resources that I have given you in order to create this paper. And we will discuss when I come back on the 30th in class, how we're going to take all that information and how we're going to organize it into an awesome argument paper. So do your due diligence, take your time with it. More information is better than none. Okay, so if you have any questions, shoot me an email. As you know, I'm in Panama next week, and internet and Wi-Fi can be very sketchy. We are going into some remote areas, so I will try to check email when I get back to the hotels at night, and if I'm able to respond, I will. So have a great week. Remember, do not physically go to class on week 9 because you're just working on the assignments that I have posted for you. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you later.